Well, welcome back to Donington Park, everybody. If you didn't join us for the first round of the 2025 Focus Cup Championship, you missed an absolute belter. But we have got race number 2 coming up for you now, and the grid for this one is formed as per their finishing positions in the race earlier on, but each class gets flipped. So if you're first, you'll start 6th. If you're 7th, you'll start 12th. So each batch of 6 gets reversed. So as the cars head out onto the circuit, remember, for this year, we've now got 2 classes. We've got the Mark 3.5 ST250s, and we've got the ZTEC STDCIs, which is the cars we've regularly been used to. Let me guide you through the grid as the cars head out in advance of their second 15-minute race that we've got here, the final race for them here this weekend before they pack things up and head to Northamptonshire. We'll tell you more about that in a short while. Let me guide you through the grid then. Simon Watts starts from pole position, and alongside is Ian Mitchell. It's John Baker and Spencer Fortag that are there on row number 2. Leo Paniotto, who finished second in the race earlier on, starts 5th, and the race winner from earlier on, which is Lewis Clark, the reigning champion, starts 6th. Simon Walton is the last of the petrol engine cars. He will start 7th. So pole for the TDCIs in reality then is Richard Wynne, who will line up 8th on the grid. Then as we move on to the next row, it is Ian Howard and Darren Rickaby, before we then head on to row number 6, which is Mark McCann and Jamie Good. Ali Topley, who claimed the win in the diesel class earlier on, he lines up next up, our 13th on the grid. Alongside him is Craig Ballantyne, who made good progress from the back of the grid in the race earlier on. Tim Harrington and Matt Croft are next up, ahead of Abby Walton and Gary Mitchell. And then the penultimate row of the grid, we'll see Cameron Ferrado-McKenzie line up alongside Jason Bailey. Off the back of the grid goes Sarah Hall. So Simon Watts looking to see whether he can convert pole position to a race lead. But Lewis Clark, if you were with us earlier on, I mentioned we had 4 Focus Cup races at Donington Park last year. During the course of the 2024 season, Lewis Clark was unbeaten here at Donington Park last year, and was actually unbeaten in terms of qualifying pace. So he arguably is going to be the man to watch, in particular as he claimed the race win earlier on today, the first ever race win in the ST250s, the new class that's been introduced for this year. 7 cars newly built by Focus Cup on the grid. Weather conditions still breezy out there. It still feels rather cold. It might be 12 degrees, but it's a real chill in the wind. But we've had clear skies all day. The track is in absolutely perfect condition, and we're about to get a second 15-minute race underway. I mentioned in the stream earlier on today that the cars at the back of the grid, it might have been difficult for them to see the lights. Well, I think the feedback from the drivers to the championship was that, yes, it was not easy to see the lights, and therefore there was information issued, and what we're now going to see is on the grounds of safety, in order for the rear of the grid to be able to see the lights, at the same time the lights go out, there will be a union flag that is dropped from further down the grid, so that those cars at the back of the grid that can't see the lights, as soon as they see that union flag fall, which will be simultaneously when the lights go out, that's when they will get the message that they need to get things underway. So as ever, Focus Cup listening to the competitors, just making sure that nobody has an advantage or disadvantage when the lights go out. So Lewis Clark, Leo Paniotto, Spencer Fortag were the top 3 in the petrol class earlier on. Ali Topley, Jamie Good and Mark McCann were the top 3 in the diesel class. Simon Watts there, you can see in the yellow and the blue, flashes to his car on the left of your screen, lines up on pole position with the red and the black and the white car of Ian Mitchell alongside. It's the largely blue and light blue car of John Baker on row number 2, alongside the white and yellow and black car of Spencer Fortag. And then Leo Paniotto, largely white. It's got some Union Jack flashes to it. He sits there on row number 3 alongside the blue and light blue, the odd purple flash to it with the number 1. You can just see in the top right-hand corner of the screen on row number 3. Tail end of the field comes into position. They've also brought the diesel class up a further row from where they were earlier on to try and reduce the problem of visibility of the lights. And the cars are under starters orders in reality, so just waiting for the red lights to come on, which they do now. And round 2 of the 2025 Focus Cup Championship is go here at Donington Park. Looks as though it's a better start maybe from the outside of the front row for Ian Mitchell, who's now just moving along to try and squeeze Simon Watts towards the apex. Watch out for Spencer Fortag, who's got a brilliant start at the wheel of the Powermax car. He's trying to go right the way around the outside. Simon Watts already down into 3rd, gets tagged into a spin, I'm afraid, by Lewis Clark, the champion, who's then collected by Leo Paniotto, who's got damage and a radiator that's gone on his car, so that will be coolant that's streaming out of his car as he heads down through the Craner curves. That's going to make things very difficult. You can see Leo Paniotto is almost going off on his own coolant heading down through the Craner curves, and that's split the ST250 pack to a degree. So down through the old hairpin, everybody's still on circuit. You can see the fluid gushing out of Leo Paniotto's car, who's surely destined for the pit lane and retirement at the end of this one. He's trying to stay out of the way of everybody, and I think that he's got the message and might even retire midway round through the lap. Quick spin, trying to rejoin his Ian Graham. I would imagine that's probably caught out on the coolant down there, and that is going to be a very tricky section of the race, and the red flags have come out as a result. So yeah, not surprising. There's a lot of coolant on the circuit. I think it was coolant, it could have been oil, but it looks like it was probably radiator damage to his car, and unfortunately that is going to be it for Leo Paniotto in this one. The rest of the cars that were involved, I think, all sort of got away with it, which included Lewis Clark, who's got some damage certainly to the front left-hand corner of his car. I think there's a little bit of light damage there to that. There might even be a little bit of damage to the rear of it. Can't quite see from the footage that we're seeing, but the red flags come out, I'm afraid, very early on in this one to bring the race to a halt, and then our ever-efficient Donington Park marshals, with the assistance of the circuit maintenance team, will treat the coolant, oil, whatever it may be, all the way down through the Craner curves towards the old hairpin. And I think Leo Paniotto ultimately pulled off around Starkey's Bridge area, maybe on the run-up towards Schwantz Curve. So there's a fair chunk of the circuit that will need addressing. There is Leo Paniotto. He stopped on the approach towards McLean's by the look of things. So marshals just busy chatting to him. And you can see the damage to the front of his car, where the impact was made with what I think was the rear of Lewis Clark's car. If not, it would have been John Baker's car. And as ever, the marshals, usual thing, wave your boot across the thing, a quick sniff of it to see, is it coolant, is it oil, and then they'll start to treat it all. But this is going to be a delay of not just a few minutes, I'm afraid. It's going to take probably a good 10 minutes to deal with the issue. And once all of the coolant has been dealt with by putting dust on top of it and then sweeping away, they might even bring out the road sweeper as well, because as good as the marshals are, there's only so much of the dust you can get rid of with a broom. So possibly the road sweeper might be needed. Further inspection also just being done to see whether there's any residual fluids coming out of Leo Paniotto's car. So as ever, the marshals doing a fantastic job. They'll clear this up as quickly as they can. All of our experienced marshals dressed in orange. There's a couple of there in a tabard, and they'll probably be on what's called a taster day. If you want to become a marshal, it's a really, really good way of getting close to the action without the expense of competing. They're a hugely experienced bunch, our marshals, but if you want to come into it, then log on to the website for the official site of the British Motorsport Marshals Club, which is marshals.co.uk. BMMC is the name of the club, but marshals.co.uk is the website. And what you can do is you sign up to a taster day, it's called. So you look at all of the taster days available. There are numerous ones around the country, so every circuit has several dates throughout the year, and you sign up to a date that's convenient for you at a circuit that's convenient to you, and then you will get sent through an electronic ticket. I'll tell you a bit more about that. I think we're going to get a quick look at the replay of exactly what happened up at Redgate Corner, and then we'll come back towards the marshals again whilst they're clearing it up. So the lights went out. It wasn't a bad start from Simon Watts. It was a better start from Ian Mitchell, but look at Spencer Fortag here. He looks one way, realises the gap doesn't open. He moves back to the left-hand side of the circuit in the number 2 car, and he's trying to go right the way around the outside. But keep your eye on number 10 here, which is John Baker. Where's the contact? No, they just lose it. It's cold rears by the look of things. Simon Watts loses it. John Baker loses it as well on cold rears. And Leo Paniotto got involved. And I think there was a light bit of contact also for Lewis Clark. And Leo Paniotto at that stage escapes the scene, but is probably blissfully unaware until he gets part the way down through the Craner curves. And look at his car in the background with the smoke billowing from it and the fluids coming out of it. That was when he probably realised at that point that all was not well. And then he turns into the old hairpin, and there's a gush of further fluid that comes out through the old hairpin. So it certainly looks like a Hold radiator on his car with the damage to the front of it, and then Leo then backs off the throttle. So that's what has brought this red flag about. So yeah, you log on to the British Motorsport Marshals Club, back to the marshals if you want to get involved. Sign up to the taster day, pick the circuit and the date that's convenient for you. You get an electronic ticket that's sent to your email address, and then you arrive at the circuit. You'll not be the only one that's doing it. I think we've got a whole host of marshals that are doing exactly that today. And in the morning, you are greeted by a very experienced marshal. He'll be your mentor for the day. And in the morning, you get to understand of all the different areas where you can be involved as a volunteer marshal. So it's not just the ones out on post that we see, whether they be the incident marshals or the flag marshals or the post chiefs, who are the eyes and the ears of the clerk of the course and the most experienced on your individual marshal's post. But you'll also get to go around race control to understand what happens in race control and all of the camera systems and closed circuit television systems that are down there. You will also get to probably go into the scrutineering bay to understand the process that all of the cars go through before they head out onto circuit, that checks that they comply with the regulations and that they're safe to race. You'll head into maybe timekeepers. Sometimes we see them up in the commentary box. You'll probably get to see what a rescue unit is. So the rescue units are those vehicles which are containing all of the cutting and extraction equipment that is needed in, thankfully, the very rare occurrence of a serious accident to extract the driver without any further damage to them. They're registered ambulances as well, so you get to understand what happens in there as well. And what happens in the pit lane and the start line and the assembly area where all the cars line up before they go onto the circuit. Parc Fermé, where all the cars go after each one of the races. You get to explore all of those, almost like a guided tour in the morning. And then you are put out onto one of the individual marshals' posts for the afternoon, maybe with another person that's on a taster day like yourself, but more importantly, with a whole experienced bunch of marshals to support you. You'll never be asked as a marshal on a taster day to go out onto a live circuit to deal with something. That's left for the experienced marshals. But in the case of a red flag, once then the circuit is neutralised, then you come out and start to deal with the clean-up operations with the marshals around you. It's a really, really good way, a taster day, of understanding whether marshalling's for you. The good thing about marshalling, you can do as many or as few days as you wish. There's no commitment that you have to do, but in one single day it gives you a really good idea of A, the roles that are available to you, and B, if marshalling is for you. So I would suggest everybody does it. I've done it myself. I know several racing drivers have gone out and done it, and it's brought them a very different view of marshalling. So marshals.co.uk, sign up to a taster day. What have you got to lose? So clearing up going on, a mixture of the cement dust, for want of a better term. It's not cement dust they tend to use, largely because then if it rains and the cement adheres to the circuit a bit too much, but it's I think plaster that they put down actually nowadays, something very similar to that. We could also see there were some chemicals being sprayed by our Donington Park circuit team, who as ever have prepared the circuit immaculately this weekend. I went out for a run around the circuit last night, around the Grand Prix circuit, and they were busy cutting the grass and making sure that the white lines were fully painted whilst I was out there. So it is not the work of a moment to get the circuit looking as good as Donington Park does. And to be fair, all of the MSV circuits that we see, whether it be Donington Park, Alton Park, Brands Hatch, Snetterton, Cadwell Park, they all look pretty much immaculate nowadays. And Navarra, of course, in Spain, a newly acquired circuit for the MSV group. So the clearing up continuing. I think it's only the one car that we've lost by the look of things, so I can see certainly the front row is there. So Simon Watson, Ian Mitchell are there. John Baker and Spencer Fortag are there. Leo Paniotto, of course, will be missing from row 3, but Lewis Clark is there, and I can see Simon Walton. And all of the diesel cars pick their way through, so I can just see the number 6 car with the Union Jack on the roof. It'll be the 4th car back on the left-hand side, just where one of the officials is chatting to Richard Wynne, the pole-sitting car in the Class 2. So for the Zetec S TDC eyes, alongside him can clearly see on the windscreen of the red and blue car on the right-hand side of the screen. That's Ian Howard. So I think everybody else is there. I can see Darren Rickaby, Mark McCann I can just see, Jamie Good's car I can see, and I think Andrew Freeman was there as well. So they're all sat there waiting. We've got our new Hyundai electric safety car at the back of the grid. Hyundai were announced probably only 3 or 4 weeks ago to be the new official partner at all of the MSV circuits, providing all of the circuit vehicles. So it will be the safety cars and the course cars, and I think they're also fully electric, nearly everything that they supplied, and even down to things like Bedford Aerodrome, which is another one of the facilities under the umbrella of the MSV group as such. I think you can get an experience day in one of those. It might be an electric car, but the performance of it, Jonathan Palmer I think did a piece, and I saw an article somewhere just suggesting how enormously positive the response was on throttle take-up and performance and handling generally of the Hyundai. So if you want to get involved Bedford Aerodrome is a very good place to go. I think regardless of whether you're an experienced or inexperienced driver, you feel as though you're being pushed to your limits in a whole range of performance saloon cars and GT cars, karting, even single-seaters. You get to experience loads of them in a single day. I've done it myself. It was quite some years ago now, but it was a day where you came away from it absolutely shattered because you had been concentrating so hard to what your instructor was saying beside you. You're in full radio communication all of the time with your crash helmet on, but you really do come away absolutely shattered. So that's another thing that's well worth doing. And there's plenty of other driving experiences all available, whether it be at Donington Park or others. So either log on to MSV or you can see the sign in the background, palmersport.com. All the details will be available on there. So Marshall's still busy sweeping up. Now Leo Panayiotou stopped up at McLean's corner, yet this is down at the Melbourne hairpin where brushing is being done, which maybe suggests that there was a car that might have been depositing something on the formation lap. So, and I'm only saying that because at the point the red flags came out, the cars hadn't really got to that point. Leo Panayiotou certainly hadn't got to that point, but we did see two cars that I suggested might be cold rear tyres spin at Redgate Corner. Maybe it wasn't, you know, in their defence, maybe it wasn't cold rear tyres. Perhaps it was something that had been put down inadvertently on the formation lap that hadn't been spotted, and when poor old Simon Watts and John Baker got there, they dropped their Nankang tyres onto whatever was down there, and that was what caused the spin in the first place, and then caused the accident with Leo Panayiotou to deposit coolant all around the track. So I think cement dust being used on the patches of what are probably oil, and some sort of special chemical being used to clear up and allow the coolant to evaporate a little bit quicker. Now, it's not very often they need to put the chemical down. I've usually seen that done when the circuit is wet, because when the circuit's wet, there's no point putting down the dust. So they usually then put the chemical down to try and soak up any oil that's deposited when it's a wet track. But as ever, it doesn't take long for the circuit team to move all the way from Redgate Corner, all the way down towards the old hairpin. I then suggested they might get the sweeper out. No, it's the leaf blower that's coming out just to blow away any residual dust. So they'll strike that up and give the dust a blow, and then have to work their way around to the next batch on the circuit, which might be up at McLean's corner, might possibly be up at the old hairpin. So if you're the marshals there on a windy day, close your eyes. And it's amazing just how quickly the team comes together when incidents happen to try and clear it up. You know, on occasions it does delay the racing a bit longer than anybody would wish, including the spectators, the marshals, the commentary team, the drivers. But it is imperative, absolutely imperative, that safety comes first. And when you've got fluids on the circuit, you know, if it takes an extra 5 minutes to clear them up to make it safe for everybody to go out there, that has to be the priority. So a disappointed Leo Panayiotou heads in the recovery truck back into the pit lane area. He'll be back out, I'm sure, at Silverstone on the 19th of April, when we'll see the next couple of races in the Focus Cup. They will be live streamed as well, so you can tune in for all of those at Silverstone on the 19th of April. Then it's Brands Hatch and the Grand Prix circuit. They'll be live streamed for you as well on the 17th of May. After that, it's Snetterton on the 7th of June, another event, rounds 7 and 8, where we'll be bringing you all of the footage. I think it's all rounds bar a couple that you won't be able to see live. After Snetterton on the 300 circuit in June, then late June it's Alton Park on the international circuit on the 28th of June. Croft in North Yorkshire is in August. At the moment, I'm not sure that round is scheduled to be live streamed, but you can always tune into tsl-timing.com and listen to the live circuit commentary potentially for that one. And then the final round back here at Donington Park, where we're on the Grand Prix circuit this weekend. I think we're back on the national circuit on the 20th of September. So green flag being waved already, just going to show how quickly that incident was cleared up. And at the moment we are scheduled to have the full duration of the allocation of 15 minutes for this one. So can Spencer Fortag get the quick start again? The drivers will now be, I'm sure, just looking as to where the fluid has been put down, and on the formation lap it's a good idea, not necessarily everywhere, but to put your wheels on it, drive over it, particularly at the start of the lap, drive your wheels over it, accelerate hard and just see how the car reacts. Because if it does react, then your best bet is when the lights are out and you're racing, then stay well clear. If it doesn't quite react, then yeah, maybe you could afford to just drop your wheels onto it. And already there, look, you can see down through Craner Curves, that was awash with coolant not long ago. That chemical that they put down has already allowed the coolant to evaporate much, much quicker than it would otherwise do. It takes coolant a long, long time to evaporate. If it's water, it disappears much quickly, but coolant, A, it's slippier, and B, it takes longer to evaporate under natural sunlight or ambient temperature. We haven't got huge amounts of ambient temperature today. So let's have another go at round 2 of the championship. So cars heading up towards Redgate Corner. The clouds starting to build. It was nice and sunny this morning, but it's gradually got cloudier throughout the day. The wind's building up as well, and news in my ear is suggesting that we are scheduled and forecast to have rain in the next 9 minutes. Well, this is a 15-minute race. Now, you know, they run the same tyre, whether it's a wet or a dry condition, so that shouldn't affect any tyre choice or anything this one, because there is no choice to have. But it would be the first time in testing yesterday, because all of these cars were out testing yesterday. That's part of the package. When you buy a weekend of racing with the Focus Cup, you can't run your own car. No teams can have the car. It's all controlled by Focus Cup. And when you pay the fee for the weekend, whatever that may be, depending on the class that you're in, that includes a test on a Friday. Well, it was beautifully dry weather yesterday. We've had dry weather today, and we've had a spin in the background and some contact, possibly, or a bumper ripped off as it's gone onto the grass for Tim Harrington. So that, I'm afraid, is going to cause a further delay. And he might have made contact with Ian Graham, because Ian Graham has now pulled his car off onto the left-hand side of the circuit next to the old exhibition centre. So from a red flag, we are going to be heading towards a delayed start. Didn't quite catch what was going on there, but I would imagine it was a chunk of weaving to try and build some tyre temperature in the Nankangs. Ian Graham has got going again, but quite what happened to Tim Harrington, I'm not entirely sure whether he either got caught out with overweaving or whether there was any sort of contact. So Ian Graham is going to retire the car, whatever his problem is. And yes, there's definitely been contact, because look at the left rear. Let's just have a quick look in the right in the background of the shot. You've got Ian Graham weaving from side to side. Tim Harrington comes up, and Ian Graham clonks right into the side of Tim Harrington. I'm not apportioning blame one way or the other, but Ian Graham was weaving reasonably vigorously from side to side to try and build temperature, and Tim Harrington was trying to accelerate to try and get his front wheels to spin up and build some temperature, and between the two of them they've come together, I'm afraid. So this will now create a delayed start, and with a further delayed start and recovery of Tim Harrington's car taking place in the background with the telehandler heading round to it, this may possibly mean that what was going to be a 15-minute restart of the race, if it takes a while to sort this out, we might just have to trim the time slightly, because it's not just the Focus Cup we've got racing at Donington Park this weekend. There are several other supporting races which all have got track time allocated, and I think the last race today, the final checkered flag that we're going to see for one of the supporting races, is 20 to 7, which, with the cloud cover coming in now and the potential of rain, it may well be heading towards, I would have thought, dusk at 20 to 7. So if we have any delay in the timetable for our planned finish time, that would impact on later races. So Focus Cup lining up on the grid. Background of the shot, Tim Harrington's car being moved out of harm's way. Tim Harrington was one of several novices that we've got on the grid for this weekend. The highest novice we've got on the grid, all of the novices are in the ZTEC S TDCI class, the diesel class, class 2, and the highest placed of those on the grid, if I've got this correct, would be the pole sitter, number 6, Richard Wynne, who finished 6th in the race earlier on, and therefore when each batch of 6 gets flipped, he inherited pole position. So yeah, 1st to 6th get reversed for race number 2, 7th to 12th get reversed, 13th to 18th get reversed, and in the case of the TDCIs, because we've got 20 of them, 19th and 20th get reversed. So brilliant work done by the marshals. Disappointed drivers wandering back with others. Telehandler just about to get the stricken car of Tim Harrington out of harm's way. And then, fingers crossed, once the telehandler then gets back to its position, which is right up at the snatch gap at Coppice Corner, so it'll go back through the gravel trap from where it is in the reverse direction, right up against the tyre wall so it's out of harm's way. Then we'll be able to get the race back underway. As you can see there's a single green flag lap has just been received, the message from our fantastic officials in race control, and as I thought, the race duration has now been reduced as a result of the red flag. The restart should have been 15 minutes, but because we've now had this other problem on the secondary green flag lap and a tight timetable, we've got little choice but to reduce the distance, I'm afraid, for the Focus Cup, down to just 10 minutes for this one. So in the reverse grid format, it gives you less time to try and make up the places on the reverse grid. So planned start time for this one is, well, it's saying 15:55. That was the original planned start time, so just waiting for any further news. But I don't think it'll be that much further before we get the formation lap back underway. And then we'll see as to whether Lewis Clark can do in 2025 what he did at the start of 2024 and claim a pole position and 2 wins. He did in 2024 also claim the fastest lap of the race, which gives you an extra 5 championship points. He didn't do that earlier on today. It was Leo Paniotto who brought about that earlier red flag that set the fastest lap. That's a 1 minute 47.676 is the benchmark time. So that's an average speed. You include all the twiddly bits and the heavy stopping area for the Melbourne hairpin. His average speed across the lap was still 83.16 miles per hour. So you work that out as to what they're doing in a straight line in what are reasonably standard cars, built for racing, absolutely, to a specification, but it's not as though there's engine and gearbox changes as such in them. Then it's not a bad average speed. They must be topping out, I would have thought, probably 120. I'd have thought, it's only my guess, coming down the exhibition straight and in towards the heavy braking area for the Fogarty S's, and maybe at a similar speed as they head downhill slightly in towards Redgate Corner, which is where the front of the pack are heading now. So again, brilliant work done by the marshals, by the officials and by the snatch crew to clear up the incident. Ian Graham will be a frustrated spectator at the Fogarty S's. Tim Harrington will be a frustrated spectator somewhere down the exhibition straight, and off go the cars onto their next formation lap. I think everybody is in the original cars that were allocated for the weekend, with the sole exception of Cat Gray, who should have been out in the Monster Energy liveried car, but her car, I think, had a small issue in qualifying which affected her times, put her to the back of the grid on qualifying times, and that issue clearly couldn't have been sorted, so she swapped over into the yellow and black liveried number 47 JCB machine for the race earlier on today, and she's remained with that car for this race as well. Kat did do, I think, a couple of rounds in the 2025 championship season. She told me earlier on this weekend that she's in for the full season. And everybody would appear to be there by the look of things. So just looking through, yeah, Sarah Hall at the back of the grid in the Swan Flight car. So it looks as though we have got everybody that we're expecting. So just the 2 exceptions, or the 3 exceptions, I suppose, with Leo Paniotto having already disappeared at the point that the red flag came out. So a final bit of weaving to be done, hopefully with no consequence. And then when all of the cars line back up on the grid, remember when the red lights go out, it will now just be a 10-minute race that we'll see for round 2 of the 2025 Focus Cup Championship. 30 points if you claim the win, 26 for second, 23 for third, 21, 20 and 19 for sixth, and so on. It diminishes down from there, down to just a single point if you're 24th. And even if you do not finish, you do still score a single point. So even for Leo Paniotto and Ian Graham and Tim Harrington, it won't be a great deal of consolation, but they do still pick up at least 1 championship point as a non-finisher. Now, Simon Watts didn't get a brilliant start last time through. Windscreen wiper is on Spencer Fortag there, and I say we were expecting rain in the next 9 minutes. We've got 1 car with a windscreen wiper on. From my commentary position, we don't really get any rain falling on the window, and another one there with its windscreen wiper on, which suggests that there are some spits of rain in the air, because Darren Rickaby just flicked his windscreen wiper on. And as ever, fantastic stuff by the Onside Productions team. Cameraman up at Coppy's Corner has already let us know, yes, there is some rain up at Coppy's Corner. So the rain is going from, or the wind is blowing from the south-west direction. It is flopping around a bit, but yeah, largely southwesterly wind, which is what you would expect with the prevailing wind in this country. But it's got to Coppy's Corner. Like most circuits, they all have their own little microclimate. So it might be raining at Coppis, but it's probably bone dry up at Redgate Corner. And as a driver, that makes it very, very difficult indeed. It looks as though, for whatever reason, we've now got another red flag has come out. Now, the reasoning behind this one is a bit of a mystery to me at the moment. So, have they spotted something on Ian Mitchell's car that they now want to address? We've got other cars heading into the paddock area, or the pit lane area, and I do wonder as to whether, for some reason, this race may not now be going ahead. So our timekeepers are resetting their computer system. So whilst we've got a checkered flag on the timing at the moment, it doesn't necessarily mean that the race isn't happening. But with all of the cars going back into the paddock area, I do fear that this might be a race that doesn't happen. Now, quite the reasoning for the second red flag, I do not know, but race control now confirming that this race will not restart, I'm afraid. So it is going to be not just disappointment for Leo Peniotto, Ian Graham and Tim Harrington, it will be disappointment for everybody on the Focus Cup grid. And quite why we've had the second red flag, I don't know, I'm afraid, and I can shed no light on that for you at all. But it does look as though, after a red flag and then another delay because of contact on the second green flag lap, something else may well have occurred, and race control, looking at the timetable, have said, no, we just haven't got the time now for this, because Focus Cup have delayed themselves is the wrong phrase to use, but have had a few issues which has delayed the start of their race, and as a result of that, why should other supporting races be compromised, which is always a huge shame when that happens. But it is a difficult decision, and race control is always, I always say it's akin to being a referee at a child's football match, is that you're never going to please everybody, the clerk of the course, and difficult decisions have to be made. And for whatever reason, all of the Focus Cup cars, I'm afraid, are heading into the pit lane area. On occasions where there's a bit more time in the timetable, we might see them back out later on, but I just don't think with the timetable that we've got today there's sufficient gap anywhere to see this race back out, which is hugely disappointing. So the final few cars making their way into the paddock area, and whilst it's not been confirmed by race control that we won't see them out later on, they have confirmed that this race will not be continued at this stage, and I think that probably means that that's it. We can draw a line under it for the day, and probably draw a line under it for Donington Park, which was not really what we wanted to bring you. We wanted to bring you some action, some fantastic action from the Focus Cup. We did do that earlier on today for round one of the championship, but I'm afraid that it looks like round two is going to be one of those rounds that just doesn't happen. That being the case, of course, then we can still look forward to round 3 and round 4 of the championship, which will be taking place at Silverstone on the 19th of April, and we hope that we'll be able to bring you 2 brilliant races from the Focus Cup when we head there in just a few weeks' time. So it's a sad goodbye from all of us at Donington Park, but please tune in, and we can bring you 2 races, I'm sure, from Northamptonshire on the 19th of April. Goodbye.